You have not stopped believing. That is not the problem. You wake up most mornings with God somewhere in the back of your mind. A general awareness, a warmth, a kind of ambient trust that He is there and that things are, in some fundamental sense, going to be all right. You pray when the doctor's office calls back with results you were not expecting. You pray when the money gets tight enough that you start running the numbers in your head at 2 a.m, quietly, so you don't wake anyone. You pray when a relationship fractures and you don't know how to hold the pieces. You pray when something is going wrong, when something might go wrong, when you're afraid something is about to go wrong. And then the situation resolves, or doesn't, and the conversation closes. Not deliberately, not because you stopped caring. The silence just fills back in the way water fills the space where your hand was. And the next ordinary Tuesday comes, and God waits. You have been doing this for years, maybe for as long as you can remember calling it faith at all. And if someone asked you right now whether you have a relationship with God, you would say yes without hesitating, because you genuinely believe that to be true. You show up on Sundays, you tithe, you serve when they need people to serve, when your name is on the roster, and you show up without complaining. You are not one of the ones who drifted. You have watched them go. People from your small group, friends from the early years who started strong and slowly stopped, and you are still here. Still in the same seat, or close to it, still holding the same faith you were handed and choosing across years of ordinary Tuesdays to keep it. That counts. That is real. But there is something else that is also real, something you have not yet put a name to. There's a texture to this that you have never quite named out loud, a kind of functional distance, a God who is close when the need is large enough to justify the interruption, a God you reach for the way you reach for an emergency contact, not the one you call because something happened that you wanted to tell someone, the one you call when the situation has escalated past what you can handle alone. And you have been telling yourself, without fully knowing you were telling yourself anything, that this is what maturity looks like, that this is the behavior of someone who doesn't treat the relationship as a vending machine, that a grown faith does not need to be in God's face every hour about every small thing. You have mistaken the distance for dignity. You don't know when it started. That is one of the things that makes it hardest to see. There was no moment where you made a decision to reduce this. It happened the way most drift happens, through 1,000 small defaults, 1,000 mornings where the day started before the conversation did, 1,000 evenings where nothing went wrong and so nothing prompted you to reach. The habit that formed was not rebellion. It was convenience. It was the path of least resistance through 1,000 ordinary days. And at the far end of all those days is where you find yourself now. Inside a faith that is genuinely yours, inside a relationship that is genuinely real, and somehow still standing outside a door you have never thought to open because nothing has ever broken down badly enough to make the opening feel necessary. You are not backslidden. You are not in the kind of collapse that makes for a dramatic testimony. You are simply functional. You have learned to operate inside your faith the way you operate inside a house you have lived in for 20 years, without stopping to look at it, without wondering at it, because you already know the layout and you can find everything you need in the dark. The lights are on enough. The structure holds. You're not uncomfortable here. And that is exactly what has made this so invisible for so long. The things that hurt us most are not always the things that feel like pain. Some of them feel like nothing at all. God has been patient with it. That is what makes the whole thing complicated. He has not withdrawn. The prayers still get answered. Some of them are the way prayers get answered, which is not always yes and not always fast, but always eventually something. The relationship has continued to function. He has not penalized the distance. He has not gone quiet to force the issue. He has simply been there, available, holding the door open with the same consistency he has always held it. And you have been there too, available when something was urgent enough to call for it. And between the two of you, a kind of arrangement has settled in that looks from the outside like a relationship, and is one, genuinely, but feels on the inside, if you are being honest with yourself at the level where honesty costs something, more like maintenance, like a standing arrangement between two parties who respect each other and have agreed not to ask for more than what the arrangement covers. The specific thing you do, the one you have never once thought of as a problem, the one that has never once registered as something to confess or examine, is this. You wait to feel the need. You have trained yourself, without ever consciously deciding to train yourself, to use the presence of crisis as the signal that it is time to connect. Small things you handle. Medium things you handle with a passing mention, the way you mention something to someone you trust, without really stopping to talk about it. Large things. The ones where you can feel the ground becoming uncertain under you. Those you bring to God in full, you kneel for those. You fast for those. You get up early for those, and you mean every word. And this has always felt like something good. It has felt like responsible stewardship, like not bothering God with things you can manage on your own, like the behavior of a mature believer who has learned to calibrate the conversation appropriately. What it actually is, a ceiling, not a punishment, not a blockage in the way you might picture one. Something clogged, something backed up, something that would release if you could find the right prayer or the right amount of consistency or the right level of consecration. It is simpler than that and stranger than that. It is the fact that what you are available for is what you receive. You have made yourself available for emergency intervention, and that is what the relationship has shaped itself around. Because relationships shape themselves around the terms you bring to them. You set the terms. The term said, "I will be fully here when the situation requires it." And God, in his patience, has honored those terms. He has met you at every place you came to. What he has not been able to give you within those terms is what does not fit inside them. The kind of intimacy that David had, that produced the Psalms, that could say you're familiar with all my ways before a single word is on my tongue, that could sit in the devastation of Psalm 22 and the wonder of Psalm 23 in the same breath, because the relationship was deep enough to hold both. That kind of knowing requires a presence that does not wait for the crisis to justify itself. Think about any relationship in your life that runs on the same structure. Think about what it looks like when someone only calls you in difficulty, not because they don't love you, not because they are using you, but because that has simply become the rhythm. What you don't get from that relationship is the texture of ordinary time together. You don't know what they have been noticing. You don't know what they have been thinking about you, for you, toward you, in the quiet between the conversations. You don't accumulate the kind of understanding that builds only in unremarkable hours. The understanding that means when the hard thing does come, you're not starting from zero. You are drawing on something that was already there, already layered and dense, built across 100 ordinary days when neither of you needed anything from the other except to be in the same place at the same time. That depth is what is available to you now, not one day. Now, that is not conditional. It is not something you have to earn back or something that requires a reckoning before it can begin. It is a description of what is already there, already prepared, already waiting in a patient readiness that you have not yet fully walked into because you have not yet made the one shift that opens it. The shift is not more prayer in the sense of more words. It is not more time in the sense of more minutes counted. It is a change in the underlying logic of why you reach at all, a decision to stop using the presence of need as the justification for the presence itself, to reach not because something is broken, but because nothing is, and you still want to be here. To come on a morning when everything is fine, when there is nothing to ask for and nothing to report, and to stay in the reaching, not for what you might receive from it, but because the being here is its own answer to a question you didn't know you were carrying. This will feel unfamiliar. In the beginning, it will feel like going through the motions, because the urgency that used to carry you into the conversation will be absent, and without it, you won't know at first what you are doing or whether it is working. You will open the conversation with nothing to say. You will sit in a silence that does not feel productive. You will wonder whether this counts. That discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is the sensation of a habit being displaced by something truer. It is what recalibration feels like before it resolves into something you recognize. Stay in it. The strangeness is not a signal to stop. The strangeness is the point. What changes when you make this shift is not dramatic in the way you have been hoping for. It does not announce itself with the feeling of a dam breaking or a door finally swinging open with a sound you have been waiting years to hear. What it feels like at first is quieter than that. A different quality to the morning, a sense of being accompanied through the ordinary day rather than monitored from a careful distance. A God who begins to feel less like an emergency contact and more like someone who was already in the room when you woke up. Someone you can say nothing important to and still feel the specific weight of the difference between saying it and not. And then slowly, not in one moment, not in a day you can name, not in a week you can point to, the texture of what you receive begins to change. Not the quantity of answered prayer, the quality of the receiving. The sense that what is coming to you is not dispensed from a process, but offered from a knowing. The way a father gives to a child he understands completely, responding not only to the request, but to everything he knows about who is asking and why and what is actually needed underneath the thing they said they needed. That kind of giving requires that kind of knowing. And that kind of knowing has only ever been built one way, in the ordinary time, in the unremarkable hours, in the conversations that didn't need to happen but happened anyway, because showing up for someone is not only something you do when the circumstances demand it. It is something you do because you have decided that the presence of the person matters more than the presence of a reason. Consider what David wrote. Consider the intimacy in it, not just the praise, but the argument, the grief, the confusion, the raw asking. David did not only come to God when things were critical. He came when he was afraid and didn't know why. He came when he was glad and wanted to say so. He came when he was watching the sky and couldn't stop thinking about it. He came because being away from the conversation was, for him, its own kind of suffering, Not a dramatic suffering, but a quiet wrongness, the way a day feels slightly off when something expected is missing. That is not a special anointing David was born with. That is the consequence of a specific choice made thousands of times over a life. The choice to treat the ordinary day as an occasion for presence, not just the terrible days, not just the miraculous days, every day, including the ones that felt like nothing. You are not being corrected. You are being invited. The distance that settled in was never a failure of faith. It was a misunderstanding, small and nearly invisible, about what faith is for. Faith is not the mechanism by which you access God when things become difficult. Faith is the ongoing reality of a life lived close to someone who made you, who knows you, who has been waiting with a consistency that outlasts your own. For you to stop treating this as a resource and start treating it as what it always was. The difference between those two things does not require a dramatic conversion. It does not require a new season or a new discipline or a new church. It requires one Tuesday morning, one ordinary day with no emergency in it, no crisis calling the conversation into existence. You, with nothing urgent, nothing broken, nothing to report, reaching anyway, not for what you need, not for what might be given, just to reach, just because he is there, just because you are, just because the door was never locked. And you're finally done assuming you needed something to be wrong before you had a reason to open it.